So what I'm going to cover today is the title, abstract, keywords, and references, which are very, very important for a complete paper to be made. So if you look at title is actually the most important line of the publication. It's a single line, but it conveys everything what is there in the paper in a nutshell. So some people call the title as the front door of the house, and it directs the reader to the paper. And it also, in one way, acts as an advertisement of the work which you have done and published. That is why it needs to be really good and accurate. So when we are looking for literature, what do? We always do a PubMed search, and what appears there is actually the title of the paper. So if we get interested in the title, then only we move forward. And it's been said that for every person who reads the whole paper, about 500 people only read the title. So that shows you how important the title is in the paper. And what is the purpose of the title? One, it should present the main message of the paper. It should attract the potential reader and evoke their interest. They should get interested after reading the title. And the title also should provide some keywords which can be used for further search. And these keywords are used by search engines like PubMed is a repository which uses the keywords from the title when we initiate any search. So these are the main three functions of the title. And what should be the attributes of a good title? As I said that we want to attract the audience or the reader, so it has to be attractive, but it also has to be informative. Because if it doesn't contain the information, if you write very cryptic titles, the reader may get attracted, but reader will not like to read your paper. And our job is to make the reader read the full paper, because we have done so much work, so much effort has gone into writing a paper. And if nobody reads it, it's all waste. All that effort is down the drain. So that is why the title must be attractive but informative. It should be simple and concise. You can't have a title of which goes into 3 lines and then the reader gets put off. It also should be accurate and specific about paper's content. I will show you some examples. And it's a good idea if the title also indicates what is the study design of that paper and in which subjects the paper study has been done. Is it a study which is done in animals? Is it done in humans? And if it is done in animals, which species is it? And last but not the least, it should also be grammatically correct. Should the title contain results? What do you people think? Let's have some audience thoughts. Do you think that title should have the results? Anybody? Why do you think the title should not have the results?
And then the person will not be interested in reading the full paper.
Okay, so you have given out the secret. The people who say yes, tell me the reason. Why do you say it should contain the results?
Ma'am, to attract more readers, like you should not completely reveal the result, but partially reveal it so that they'll be more tempted to read.
Yes. So you have to be very judicious. Like if I am reading a title and if I know that this is the main finding, I may be more attracted to read the article. So it can work either way. There are people who feel that it should be there and there are people who feel it should not be there. But what should be avoided in the title? It's best to avoid abbreviations. Unless they are very well accepted or you are publishing in a very narrow journal, which is a specialty journal, where you assume that most people will understand what you are writing. But my advice will be that it's best to avoid abbreviations. I would request everybody to put off their mics unless you have some question. And generally, we don't use literary titles. We generally avoid using interrogative or exclamatory titles, but I'll tell you where they can be useful. And this was my slide is a little old. Use of all capitals. Anyway, that doesn't matter because nowadays most of us are submitting online and the journal automatically formats the article in their own style. So even if you have submitted all capital, it doesn't matter. So what is contained in a title in an interventional trial? In an interventional trial, a title should have the intervention, what you have done, what is the primary outcome of the study, what is the study population, if you have done any specific condition, the design, and the setting. So this is one of the titles from NEJM, which says it's a 2-year randomized controlled trial of the drug belimumab in the population of lupus nephritis. So it is giving you a fair idea that what kind of patients are enrolled in this trial, what has been done, and how long have the patients been followed up. In contrast, if you see this is another paper which is published in NEJM last year, and it says it's basically compared a combination for prevention of progression in familial adenomatous polyposis. So in this, we don't know what kind of a trial is it. Is it randomized, non-randomized? Is it blinded? Is it open label? Is it combination versus single drug or combination versus placebo? So maybe it would have been a better idea to write that it is a randomized trial of combination in comparison to sulindac for prevention of progression in familial adenomatous polyposis. That would have given more information and would have attracted more audience. So as I said, that interrogative titles generally are not recommended for original papers. And there is a study which says that articles with questions titles tend to be downloaded more because they attract attention more, but they're less likely to be cited. These can be used for review articles. So like these are 2 papers which we published last year. And if you see, we have given an interrogative title, but here because we still don't know where are we in this field. The first one was juvenile idiopathic arthritis in the gut microbiome. Where are we now? And the second one, this we have given, it's a similar kind of a review which we wrote, an invited review, where we said that microbial orchestra in juvenile arthritis, sounds of dissent. So there is dysbiosis. That is why we have put this kind of title. So these are acceptable for review articles, but not for original articles. So these are 2 papers which are published simultaneously in New England Journal of Medicine. So the original paper had a title of Efficacy and Safety of Low-Dose Aspirin in Polycythemia Vera, while the editorial was very cryptic. Daily aspirin, only half the answer, because obviously the results were not as great. So now, any questions on titles? Anybody?
Ma'am, regarding running title.
I'll come to that short title, which is running title. I'll come to that later. But okay. This is regarding the title. If you have any questions on the main title of the paper. Okay, if we don't have any questions, then we move to key. Yes.
What is a yes. Literary title?
Literary title is like poetic titles. So we generally don't use those. We use those when we write an article for a newspaper. Then we can use, like you see the editorial pieces in the newspaper, have article titles which are very literary, but not for articles which are published in scientific journals. So coming on to the keywords, keywords are basically words or very short phrases which are used for indexing by the indexing agencies or by search engines, and they are helpful to retrieve those articles when somebody puts a query for searching. So these should be about 3 to 10. So these are identifiers which represent the main concepts which are included in the title. And if you will go to National Library of Medicine, you have these medical subheadings and subject headings. So you should preferably use these mesh words. And because as I said earlier, the words which appear in the title are already used for indexing. So there is no point in putting the same thing as your keywords. So you should exclude words which are already in the title and put another 5 to 10 keywords and arrange them alphabetically. So this is, if you go to the National Library of Medicine, you can search for mesh titles in this. This is a medical subject heading. This is a mesh browser, and you can search from there, and it will give you suggestions for authors' keywords. So if you put lupus, you get all the things which are related to lupus. So depending on which fits in best for your article, you can choose that mesh word as a keyword for your title. So the keywords also help you to make your title also sometimes. So if you have your keywords as systemic lupus erythematosus, children, clinical features, outcome, because we had done a study where we had looked at clinical features and outcome in children with systemic lupus. So you can make these keywords initially and then make your title and then have another set of keywords which you can use as keywords for your article. So when we made these, we had these 4 keywords. You can make this title as assessment of clinical features and long-term outcome of childhood SLE, or clinical features and long-term outcome of childhood SLE. So that will convey a good title for your paper. Like we had this paper where we have used, the title was Effect of Probiotics on Clinical and Immune Parameters in this form of juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So if we want to use keywords, because it was a clinical trial, so you can put clinical trial. So if anybody searches juvenile idiopathic arthritis and clinical trial, my study should come there. If somebody is searching for cytokines and probiotics, I want my study to come there. If somebody is looking at probiotics and T regulatory cells effect, I want my study to be there. Or if somebody is looking at, because I have looked at commensal bacteria also in this, use commensal bacteria as probiotic. So if somebody is searching for juvenile arthritis and commensal bacteria, I want my study to come there. So that is why I have used these keywords, which will be used by the indexing agency for my article. Now what somebody has asked, I think it was Hasina who asked this question about the running title. Running title is nothing but what appears on the top or bottom of a page of the article, because your article generally runs into about 6 to 7 pages. So some journals have this thing that they will have a short title either on the top of the page or at the bottom of the page. So this, some journals will say that it should be only of 50 characters or it can be 5 to 7 words. It can be present on every page, or some journals have it only on the page on the right side. And in this running title, standard abbreviations are allowed in contrast to the main title. The main purpose of this running title is just to keep track of the article. So when we wrote this paper, so this paper was on immune response to Mycobacterium tuberculosis membrane-associated antigens, including the alpha crystalline, can potentially discriminate between latent infection and active tuberculosis. So when we wrote the running title was only this: prognostic potential of MTB membrane-associated antigens. So it is basically only 6 to 7 letters, 7 words, and it gives the main message, but it does not need to be absolutely correct. It can be a short phrase itself. So now the most important part of the article is the abstract. I told you the title is important, and next to that is abstract. Because when we do search, when we get a little bit interested in the title, what we do? We next look at the abstract. If we really find the abstract interesting, then only we move on to the full paper. So an abstract has to be an accurate summary of the paper. The main purpose of abstract is basically the same as the title. It is included in most abstracting services, and it helps the reader to browse and to decide, should I read the full article or not? So abstract basically is a brief statement of key points of the whole paper. So it should contain a part of the information from introduction. It should have a part of the information from the methods, results, and the conclusion. It should be short, but it should be intelligible. It should be informative and also interesting. But you should avoid unnecessary details, because if you put in too much of details, then it's not short. And most journals will tell you that the abstract should be only of a certain word limit. We will come to that. The other thing is that abstract should be stand alone, because a lot of people will only read your abstract and nothing else. So it has to explain your study in a form that it can be understood by the reader. Obviously, it has to be accurate. So most journals would ask you to submit a structured abstract. A structured abstract is nothing but an abstract which follows the IMRAD pattern. That is, it has an introduction, it has a method section, it has a result section, and instead of discussion, it has a conclusion. Still, some basic science journals continue to have unstructured abstracts. And we'll see how you can make an unstructured abstract. The length varies from journal to journal, and in most journals, it will be between 150 to 250 words. So it also depends on what kind of a paper it is. So in a general paper, it could be introduction, methods, results, conclusion. But if it's a drug trial, as you see in Lancet, in NEJM, it could be segregated into many sections like objective, design, setting, subjects, intervention, what is the main outcome measure, what is the result, and what is the conclusion. So Annals of Internal Medicine uses this kind of a structured abstract. And you may add background and limitation. So this is a structured abstract which reads, basically you have a background information that we don't have much of information available on what is the knowledge bank about scientific writing among medical teachers. So the method we have used is we have administered a 10-point questionnaire to test knowledge. The result, 32 medical teachers participated and only 20 of those achieved a score of 50. The younger ones scored worse than the older ones, and the average score in the two groups were this. And we are giving the statistical analysis for that. And finally, we have made a conclusion that Indian medical teachers lack skills in medical writing, and there need to be steps to improve this. And that is what we are trying to do today. The same abstract can be made into an unstructured abstract by removing those titles. So even if a journal is asking you to make an unstructured abstract, it is a good idea to make a structured abstract, because then it will contain the important ingredients in it and it will be a complete abstract. Otherwise, it may happen that you write too much about the introduction and you forget to write the methods and you write only results and conclusion. And for a drug trial, as I told you, that you can have multiple settings. So this is a study which was done in Dhaka. You have the objectives. So they have evaluated single dose vitamin A in acute dysentery. They have written the design. It's done in Dhaka. These many subjects were enrolled. The intervention was only single dose of vitamin A plus vitamin E and a control of the same dose of vitamin E. And what is the main outcome measure is clearly defined, and the results are defined along with the statistical analysis. And finally, we have a conclusion. So what are the points you should keep in mind when you write an abstract? What it should not have? One, it should have no information which is not included in the main body. It happens often that there is some information given in the abstract and you read the whole paper, it's not there. We will see why it happens. Then some people just copy sentences from the text and put it there. Abstract is supposed to be a précis. So it should be, the sentences should be very different than what is written in the text. And the abstract should not have any references or abbreviations. Preferably. References, absolutely no. What it should have, it should always contain data on primary outcome measure. And it should also have statistics of at least the primary outcome measure. So this is a study which was published in JAMA, and these are from very good journals, top quality journals. They had done a survey of 6 journals, and they found that the percentage of deficient abstract varied from 18% to 68%. And the problems were inconsistency. That data in abstract differed from those in the text. When there were different values given in the text and different values in the abstract. Then there was omission. That abstract containing data, but the data was not there in the text. And some had both of these. So these are from the top quality 6 journals. So it can happen. So how to write your abstract? When you write abstract, first look at the instruction to authors. That what is the length required by that journal? What is the format they want? And as I said, always first make a structured abstract. Check for accuracy, that all the values which you are putting in the abstract are absolutely same as they are in the main text and are correct. And there are no omissions. Pardon? Yes? Do you have any question? Okay, so why do these things happen? Because during revision, when paper comes for revision, we may change some values because there has been an error in the text. So what happens is people change in the main text, but they forget to change it in the abstract. So whenever you revise a manuscript, which obviously will be in 100% of the cases when you submit manuscript, it's very rarely that a manuscript is accepted as it is. I in my whole life has had only once. So you relook at the abstract, see that is it still accurate? Does it include, because the reviewer may have asked you to delete certain information, that it is redundant, it does not need to be there. So you see that does it include any data that have now been omitted from the main text? Or you may have added something more. You may have revisited your data and made some more conclusions out of it. You may have reanalyzed your data and had some different kind of statistics done on it. So if there is any new changes, do any additions to main text need to be now included in the abstract, please include them. Have figures and values changed? Have conclusions changed? Sometimes it can happen that you reanalyze your results, the reviewers give you comments and then you reanalyze because you had made some error and your whole conclusion may change. So always look at the abstract when you do revision of your paper. So coming on to the references now. So references, why do they want to have references? Because no research is done just out of the blue. We always think, we read, and then only we think of ideas. So most research ideas are based on pre-existing observations and hypotheses. We might be looking at a very small part of that. So references help us connect our own work to the existing body of information which is available. And it forms a starting point of all scientific inquiries. And it gives the credit to the previous workers. You feel nice when your work gets cited. So the main purpose of a reference is to provide support for statements which we are making based on prior knowledge. Like in the introduction, when we write introduction, we are basically looking at the data which has already been published. So when we write that, we should provide correct reference to that. When we use definitions or the classification criteria, we need to provide a reference because we can't write everything into the methods. Or if you're using pre-existing methods, if somebody wants to see the detail, the reader should have an opportunity to go and see. And if we find that the reader thinks that our results are something odd, then he also has the opportunity to see that Are the methods exactly what we have written? We can go back to the old paper and compare. And it helps us compare our results with previous data. That is what we do in discussion. It provides support or raises more issues which we have based on our data, and that is what actually makes our discussion, because we use the previous information based on previous studies. We need to provide references for all of that. So it is references are a listing of sources from which information, support, and the authority to use is obtained. Every reference has two parts. One we call it a citation, and second is a reference. It must be accurate, it must be complete, and should say what you quote. There are many ways to write references. It can be done in a Vancouver style, which is the most often used style, but some basic science journals still use Harvard style. So in the Vancouver style, you number references consecutively in the order of first appearance in the text. As you start writing your manuscript, you will start your references from the introduction. So whatever you want to quote, if you put them in the 1, 2, 3, 4. And if cited only in a table, there may be references which are, you have used information from some article only in the table. So then it should be numbered according to the first reference to the table. Where you are referring to the table, from there onward, you should use those references. So like, see this example. This is a study where on IVIG and in Kawasaki disease. So we were using this. This is 37 reference, 38 reference, and we are referring to table 2. And so if you are adding any information in the table, that will have reference 39. If you are quoting 5 studies here, there would be 40, 41, 42, 43. And then we will start the 46th reference in the text. So the references in the table are in continuation to where the table is being put. So if you have any article has authors up to 6, then you write the name of all the authors. You write the surname and the initials, a comma, and the next, and then you write the journal's accepted abbreviation, which you can see in the National Library of Medicine website. You write the year, a semicolon, a space, the volume, colon, a space, the first page, number of the first page, and the last page, and a full stop. This is how reference is cited in a Vancouver style. If you have more than 6 authors, you put first 6 authors and then put et al. If you have an article which appears in the supplement issue, then after the volume, you in brackets, you give the supplement number. May I ask everybody to mute themselves, please? Please mute yourself. Somebody is talking. Please mute yourself. Vijay Kumar Dwivedi. So if you're citing a book, then you have to write the author name. You have to write what is the book, which edition, where is it published, who is the publisher, and which year was it published. If it is a chapter, then you initially write the same, then you write in and the author of the chapter, and then you write the chapter name, and then at the end you write the page number of that chapter. And similarly, if it is a report, it's a software or others, these are all available on the website. You can look up every journal. Instruction to authors provides you all this information. In the Harvard style, it is very different. In the Harvard style, the year comes after the authors. That is the major difference in this. And they generally don't have anything after you have the name of the journal, then you have the volume, and here we put a comma. We don't put a colon after the volume, and we have the page numbers. So which style to follow? Different journals use minor variations in the main style, what I've shown you. Always, it's a good idea to see the instructions to authors of that journal or look at a recent issue of the journal. But as Dr. Piyush told you that day, that if you follow uniform requirements for manuscript submission to medical journals, most journals will accept papers with this style. Even though they print it in another style, they will change it themselves. The journals who are signatory to uniform requirements. The references, when the Garden rules are, do not under reference or over reference. So you will see reviews which will only have 20 references, or you will see reviews which have 400 references. You have to strike a balance. You don't need to reference what is obvious. When suppose I write a sentence somewhere that the population of India is rising, I don't need to give a reference. But if I'm providing some figures which I have taken from some article, like population of India has risen by this much percentage in these many years, then I'm quoting somebody's data. Then I need to write the reference. And do not forget to reference when you write sentences like this. The only study that showed this, then it means that there is only one study and you need to put that reference. Or if you sometimes write the 2 previous studies on this subject, those 2 studies have to be cited here. So when you write review articles, a review is generally organized around a guiding concept or a problem or a controversy, as you saw my 2 reviews on the juvenile arthritis and gut microbiome. So our objective is not to list as many articles as possible. Rather, objective is to give a relevant information and recognize what is the most relevant information available in that field, and to synthesize and evaluate it according to the basic theme. So it should not contain all the articles which have appeared. It should contain the major articles or the most recent articles which have added something new. So the do's for references are the cite references wherever you base your argument on the prior knowledge. Use a few and not several references for each statement. Refer to a full paper and not to an abstract unless it's a very recent abstract published 6 months ago. Refer to original papers, not to a review, because they can be misquoting. Always read every article that you cite as a reference. Because if you cite based on abstracts, I have told you that how many times the abstracts can be wrong and you may be citing the information wrongly. If you have something which are material is accepted for publication, you can cite as in press. Or if you are citing your own data which is not accepted for publication, you can say unpublished observation in bracket. If you are putting somebody else's unpublished data, you generally write personal communication in bracket. But for that, you need consent. You cannot cite somebody's paper or somebody's unpublished data as personal communication without informing the author. Because generally all of us work in certain areas and you may use the same references again and again. Plus, the references help you. Your article may come back from one journal and now you want to re-reference your article in a different style. For all that, today's world, most people will use a reference management software. It's nothing but, it's a personal database of references. It stores your references. It helps us to retrieve those references. It has similar search strategy as what you have in PubMed. And it helps us in preparation of manuscript because it can format our references according to the journal style. It ensures accuracy of reference because we have downloaded the exact correct reference from the PubMed. And it ensures ensuring that there is no duplication of references. It often happens if you're manually putting it, sometimes you write it twice. Because if you use a reference manager, it will be only cited once. It will be put in the reference list only once. So if you have to reformat your manuscript for another journal, it will help us reformat our references. If you have to delete one reference, you don't have to manually change the numbers every time. It will automatically change the numbers. And most of the good reference management softwares will download the references. They will import the references from PubMed or from other major databases like your so you can download your articles of your interest and put them in your management software, and you can also download abstracts with that. Other advantages are if you want to make your own CV, you can search for your own articles and automatically your list will be formed. You can store PDFs in that. Like I have, because I work on juvenile arthritis, so I have a bibliography which has, most of them have PDFs, so I don't have to keep on looking for those things. So these are the major reference management softwares available. EndNote, Reference Manager, ProSite. Zotero is available free of cost, while the other ones are, you have to buy. So thus, to summarize, key points about title. The title is catchy, should be catchy yet informative to draw attention of a reader. Keywords, use medical subject heading words that help in indexing and retrieval of your article. Abstract has to be accurate, concise, in journal format, and should contain major findings. References should be relevant, should be cited correctly, and written accurately in correct style. So if you have any questions,